All right, what's up, everybody? So this is episode 5 of a 5-part demonstration series. I have started this drawing in episode 1, focusing on finding angles, building a structure that tells the story of the pose, the story of the moment, the energy of the main character. I want to capture it. Episode 2, really moving from the big story to the smaller story. So the big story being the head's relationship to the neck, to the shoulders, to the arms. The more detailed stories are the gesture of the eyes, the positioning of the nose, the orientation of the mouth, all that. And then in episode 2, I put in some basic value. Episode 3, I really pushed it to where you could start to see what I'm going for in this drawing begin to come to life. Episode 4, I pushed it a little farther to the point where you see it now. And episode 5 is sort of taking an almost finished drawing and bringing it to completion. You know, how do you know when to stop? I mean, right now you can see I'm pushing the edges of the hair outward. I'm trying to render the value of the hair more uniform. I'm finding some sharper edges, and I'm finding some softer edges. Right there, I want to bring out sort of the light hitting that side of that curl. I've brought it out way too much. I'll probably come back in and soften it. You know, this part of the drawing is where the least amount of action is because I'm really thinking more, making minor changes. I've already gone most of the way in episodes 1 through 4. Episode 5 is just the finishing touches here. I love how soft the face is. I don't want to do too much more on it. I love how soft the hair is. I don't want to do too much more on that. In this episode, if I remember correctly, I made this drawing a year ago and I just found the video. And so I decided to make a 5-part demonstration series for YouTube. I think I remember having a really hard time with the hands. So you get to see me struggle with the hands in this episode, if I remember correctly. The biggest thing being I would measure and draw, and they would look too big. And I would remeasure and redraw, and they would still look too big. And this is going to happen to you all for sure in your drawings. And a big part of artistic maturity is learning when to trust your lines and when not to. You know, in this drawing, I had to learn that, hey, I've measured the hands 3, 4, 5 times. I should probably just trust what I've got. But, I mean, and the biggest issue, I think, in this drawing is that the hands just aren't main characters. They're secondary characters. I love what they're doing for the big picture. You know, she's hugging her pillow in sort of a self-comforting manner. But the way the fingers press together, the way the thumb curls around, it's just not as important as the facial expression, for example. It's not as important to me as the wispy nature of the curls coming off her head, or that soft drooping of the upper eyelids. Got a very relaxed gaze. And this is where I think the problems begin. But I think a good teaching point here is that when the problems begin, how do you respond? Because for me, in any drawing, any portrait, anything like this, the problems will show up. They will rear their ugly heads. And the most important drawing skill, or the most important drawing tool you need to be able to produce, is how am I going to respond to things not going my way. Honestly, I really like this stage right here. this might have been a nice stage to leave things. I forget what the final product looks like in contrast to what I've got here. It'll be interesting to see what I do. If you've watched episodes 1 through 4, then you know that I kind of disagree with a lot of the strategic decision making in this drawing. So I've clearly come a long way since making this drawing, which is cool. It's cool to see that I've improved and evolved as an artist. Yeah, so I like what I'm doing there. I'm unifying the value patterns here. I think I added too much contrast. It's competing too much with what's going on in the portrait above. So at this stage, I'm definitely kind of standing back and I'm looking and I'm saying, what do I want to do with this part of the portrait? I think if I were working on this now, I would add maybe 1 or 2 values to unify the arms and the hands. And then I might call it finished. Maybe a few lines to insinuate what surface she's on. I don't want her just floating. Yeah, so I really like, I don't know why I'm putting these lines in there. I really like that it's just 2 values meeting each other, keeping the illusion of a line on that shoulder. Maybe I'll go in and soften it up. In general, I think the more you look, the more you measure, and the less you are actually applying a drawing utensil to your paper, the better your drawings are going to be. I think one of the most important pieces of advice I give my students is draw less, look more. The bigger the ratio from drawing to looking, the more you look, the less you draw, the better it's going to be. Same thing with painting. When I have painting students in the studio with me, I really try to get them to spend 40% of their time looking, 40% of their time mixing colors, and 20% of their time actually applying a brush to the canvas. And it might even be better to go 45, 45, 10. But I really like where the hand is, the lower hand. I hope I leave it like that. Maybe even take an eraser to it and soften it. And the hand clutching the pillow, I might just emphasize the shadows around the hand, which describe the bunching of the pillow and the fingers pressing against the arm, and then call this a finished drawing. You can see with that shadow I put coming out of the elbow, suddenly even just that grounds the drawing. So I like what I'm doing. I'm softening it. I really do not want it to compete with the actual head and neck and shoulders. And it looks like I have kind of discovered that I drew the lower arm a little bit too thick. And I think adjusting that has made it sit more nicely. Feels a little more grounded now. And now I'm wrestling with issues of where do I get specific and where do I remain vague. Where do I go sharp with the edges and where do I go soft? I really like the effect of moving from line work into value work. And these are all just sort of stylistic decisions at this point. And at this stage, the biggest question I'm asking myself is it done yet? How do I know when it's done? Have I accomplished what I set out to accomplish? I think I wish I had left it at this stage here. This is when I really start wrestling with this hand, I think. I think it does its job at this stage. But at the time when I drew this, I clearly wanted to get a little more specific. So let's see how it goes. I really felt like these fingers were a little too thick when I was doing the drawing. And you know, one of the biggest problems, I think, is not that I was drawing the shapes incorrectly. It's that I was placing too much emphasis on the actual fingers of the hand. I didn't want this much importance placed at this part of the drawing. So it was a long time ago, but I do remember being frustrated at this point. I need to put that cast shadow in on the left side of the fingers. You can tell my hair's come loose. I'm clearly frustrated. Very vague division from hand to wrist. I'm like, why is this not working? Well, I've added too much value, too many sharp lines. I should have left it vague. At this stage, I want to get this to a point where it's good enough and I want to end the drawing. You know, this is the time in the drawing when you really can take it and ruin it. I think I've achieved some really beautiful things here. It's time to call it finished. And at this stage, sometimes I'll see my students at this stage, and I call it the stage of just pushing charcoal around, or pushing paint around, where it's clear that you don't really know what to do, but you're trying to do something anyway. If you don't know exactly what to do, and you pick up a paintbrush or a piece of charcoal, then you're in big trouble. You're going to do something bad. So unless you know exactly what to do, leave your drawing utensil on the table and keep looking and keep thinking. And I'm making the mistake of not doing this. This is definitely an imperfect drawing, but there's some really beautiful things going on in it. And it's almost finished. So this is about where I think the drawing is finished here. I think I maybe make one or two more marks, but essentially this is where I left it. So here's the finished drawing. I really like what I've accomplished here. I love the edges. I love the expression. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect likeness. The angles aren't perfect, but I think that the big picture is intact. The energy of the moment, the story of the moment. I captured what I set out to do, and for that reason, I really like it. I love how energetic the hair is, and I love how soft the facial expressions are. So this turned out to be a great drawing. I really enjoy it. I hope you've enjoyed this 5-part demonstration series on my approach to portraiture. And this is an interesting one because I made some strategic errors in my approach. But overall, I think it turned out well. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel, like the video. If you want to, share the video with your friends. If you know of some people who you think this might be helpful for, send it to them. And then let me know in the comments what kind of videos you want to see next. If you want to be a student of mine, check out my Patreon. I'd love to work with you. I'm still looking for more students to coach and mentor. So I hope you all have enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.